when you become famous overnight, it produces ego. When you have a slow burn fame where you start to become famous and you do a little bit more and a little bit more, it creates character.
Welcome back to the last days of Rome. My next guest needs no introduction, but I'm going to do it anyway because it's an important convention of this genre. Joe Avati is one of Australia's most successful stand-up comedy exports, and he regularly performs in Canada and the United States. This year, for the very first time, Joe's going to be doing 3 shows in Italy as part of his current world tour for his latest special, When I Was Your Age. He also has a children's book out with that very same title. You know, I didn't bring this up during the interview, but I actually met Joe in 2018 or 2019 while I was living in New York as an aspiring but very much failing stand-up comedian. I used to support myself by walking dogs, and one day while I was walking a couple of dogs, I see this guy that I recognize and I'm like, Joe Avati? And from that, he just came with me for like 20, 30 minutes walking dogs. We chatted about stand-up and we've stayed in touch ever since. And he was kind enough today to come on my show and it was a really great chat. I hope you enjoy it. So without further ado, enjoy this podcast episode with Joe Avati. Joe Avati, thanks for doing this.
Thanks for having me, man.
I appreciate it. So, I went to see you at the Veneto Club the other night.
Or the Veneto Club, as the Anglos say. The Veneto Club. Oh, yes, we'd like to see it at the Veneto Club.
I've got to say, it sounds a lot fancier.
It does, doesn't it?
I actually like that. So, I saw you there doing your current touring show, When I Was Your Age. And you mentioned at that time, during that show, that you got a 23-year-old kid running your social media page. Do you try and limit how much time you spend on social media? Is that why you do it, or is it just to delegate?
No, because you know, there's a lot of algorithms that you got to circumnavigate or circumvent, whatever you want to call it. Also, they you know, look, I don't have my finger on the pulse. You know, these kids are they're onto it. They know what works. They know when to post. There's a big part of what we do where the advertising is on Facebook and Instagram, on the metaverse or meta universe, whatever they want to call it, on YouTube. I don't know that. I don't know any of that kind of stuff. They know how to do it. They know how to make a clip and dress it up. You know, I do a lot of editing myself now because I just like it. It's just another brain muscle to flex. But yeah, that's why I get you know. And the kids know, they got their finger on it. So why wouldn't you use someone that's all part of delegation.
Yeah, for sure. The reason I bring that up is because I saw an old interview with you where you described yourself as a businessman. And I've often thought of you that way as well. You kind of know the business side of showbiz.
Yeah.
Do you think about the way young up-and-coming comics have to make it today via social media, constantly posting? Do you have any views on the way they have to make a name for themselves? And the add-on to that question is, how do you think a young up-and-coming Joe Avati would have done in that environment? Do you think this would be where you thrive?
Okay, interesting question. So there's different levels of answers to that. So firstly, let's break it up. So the first part of the question was, how do the kids break out in? Is that?
Yeah. So so let's put it this way. Let's say 20 years ago, 30 years ago, you would go work out at the club.
Yeah.
The booker would put you on and so on. Yeah. Now it's really about making it big straight away from Instagram, YouTube, whatever.
That's right. And so there's a couple of things that come out of that. Number one, when I first started, what springboarded me around the world, right, that launched me was Napster. So Napster was just only audio. It wasn't visual. So I'd turn up to Canada and people go, I thought you were 50 years old. I was 27. So the springboard that kids have today, which is going to launch them, is so I would jump on this. My springboard was Napster, and it doesn't matter how much I jump, it would get me this high. Now, I've got one leg on Instagram, one on Facebook, one on YouTube, and collectively the jump that I get is so much more. So if you're good and you produce some good quality stuff online, it is going to get seen a lot quicker. And the whole premise, what makes you famous, or in terms of a brand name, is to make as much noise in the shortest period of time, and that equals longevity in terms of. So you know how you got one-hit wonders, you know, bands and so on, you still remember them. Feagle Sharky, a good heart is a hard to find. Please be gentle with this heart of mine. One song this guy had. We still remember it today. Why? Because there was so much noise around that one song back in the 80s. It's 2024, we still remember the guy. And that's what makes fame. And that's what these kids have. The downside of it is that you don't have the practice in the clubs, right? And so, yeah, you can be funny in an edited video for 3 minutes, 5 minutes, 8 minutes, whatever, or 30 seconds. But that does not mean you can then bring that onto a stage. And I've seen very successful internet comedians, call them that, who manage to put it on stage, but geez, they're not good. They're not good. They manage to pull it off, but it's amateur hour.
Right.
It's a high school play on steroids.
Right.
And the other thing, stand-up comedians have, that we kind of have a beef, and I suppose you'll appreciate this. There's people who do sketch comedy or, get dressed up or, they'll do a video, I don't know, talking to the camera. You're not a comedian, mate. Unless you can stand in your own clothes in front of an audience and the only thing in between you and them is a microphone for an hour and constantly make people laugh. Don't call yourself a comedian. You're a character actor. You say, I put on your little, I'm a character actor, not a comedian.
It's actually one of my pet peeves. And I'm glad you said that, because sometimes I feel very petty about it.
No.
When you have some 17-year-old kid doing 10-second videos,
Yeah.
never gotten on stage once in their life,
Yeah.
they've got comedian in their bio.
Yeah, yeah.
I think that's one of the other downsides, that anyone's a comedian now.
Everyone's a comedian. And there's so many comedians now. Really? If you really want to call yourself a comedian, get out there in your own clothes, make people laugh for an hour and a half. Next Tuesday on a Saturday at 7:30.
Even just 5 minutes.
Yeah,
Do 5 minutes.
Yeah, 5 minutes.
I think it's tough because, you spoke about the springboard. I like that analogy. One of the other major differences, though, is I do think it's so much more saturated now.
Yes.
I don't think that. It is just so much more saturated.
It is.
You're competing with millions of other people.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you've noticed this, but if you look at a lot of the sort of online comedians doing these 10, 15-second videos, a lot of it is unoriginal. They're stealing material.
Yeah, that's the other thing. So when you grow up in the clubs and you take someone else's material, there'll be somebody to go, hey, buddy, mate, that's not on, right? And if it's not, you won't get work. A lot of these comedians, they beg, borrow, and steal other people's acts, make them into a video. I've had it done myself. Some of my stand-up I see in videos.
Really?
And I go... And people, because they don't know that, have never seen me, they think that's the original.
They've come up with it.
It ain't the original, and that's not cool.
No, it's not. It's not. I mean, are you seeing this mostly in Australia? Because you're pretty big in Canada and the US as well.
I've seen it in Canada.
That's where they're doing it?
Yeah, there was a guy in America doing it. There's a couple of people here in Australia who've done it. Not cool.
Right. All right, let me ask you this. How do you feel about third, fourth generation Italo-Australians doing the ethnic comedy stuff?
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with it.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Well, do it, but be original.
How do they do that? How do they do that? They didn't grow up with Italian parents like your generation did. How do they do? For me, it's impossible to do without imitating you and the other comics of your generation.
Okay, well, it depends on their... Okay, so how young? I don't know.
I'm seeing, no exaggeration, I'm seeing 18, 20-year-old kids doing ethnic humor. They're sort of, I mean, not that they're my generation, they're younger than me, but their grandparents, great-grandparents are the ones that came here. It gets weird.
Yeah. It's not authentic. Well, look, where are they drawing this inspiration from?
Your YouTube clips would be my guess?
Yeah, right. I haven't seen those. I don't know, maybe, I don't know. I don't, the funny thing is, I'm in this business, I don't watch a lot of comedy. Unless I need to work with somebody and I go, right, I need to see what this act does. Is it a suitable act that I can work with? Which I've had to do recently because of something that's coming up. I needed to know, is this person good enough to be in a show? Yeah, I will watch stand-up. The kind of stand-up that I watch, is got nothing to do with what I do.
That's funny because I do remember you telling me that, and I had actually written that down to ask you later on. You don't follow stand-up.
No.
But do you like it?
I do.
So what is the stand-up that you like?
I love Bill Burr.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, Bill Burr, Ricky
Right.
Gervais. Louis C.K., take him or leave him for me. It's just his delivery annoys me a little bit.
Okay.
But, he's funny. I like where he goes with it. I think the best stand-up comedian in the world, and I tell you what, it's very hard to say someone is the best because what makes you laugh doesn't make me laugh.
Sure.
You know what's so annoying is when people go, "You're not funny, mate." No, I'm not funny to you, which is fine. I can live with that. But don't people think when they write on your page, when you've got hundreds of thousands of followers and you've been doing this for 30 years, how could I not be funny? I must be funny to somebody.
Sure.
Otherwise I wouldn't be here.
But they don't do it for that, though. They do it because they're angry about where they're at with their lives.
Yeah.
And for them, it feels good for a couple of seconds to write something mean,
Yeah.
you know?
And it's always someone who's got no picture on their
No name.
Yeah. The keyboard warriors as they call them. Sorry, what was the question? There was a sub-question.
So I asked what you liked, who you liked, Ricky Gervais, Louis
Oh,
C.K.
that's right, yes. So the best stand-up comedian, I think, was Bill Cosby. And I'll tell you why. Because Bill Cosby in 1971, before I was born, before you were born...
You're going to get us both cancelled with this, by the way, with Bill Cosby?
No, because we're talking about the best comedian.
Yeah, I'm joking.
We're not talking about the best person.
Right.
Because I've been asked that question before on radio. Who's the best comedian? I asked Bill Cosby. Oh, hang on a minute. You didn't ask me who the best person was.
Yeah, sure.
You asked me who the best comedian was.
But we're living in a time where it is very difficult for people to separate those things.
Of course. And I'll tell you why he was the best. Because he released a special, and I urge your followers to go and watch this, in 1971. And the special was called Bill Cosby Himself. It was recorded at Hamilton Place in Hamilton in Ontario, in Canada. I've done that venue several times myself. It's him, microphone, coffee-coloured suit. Now, that was recorded before you and I were born. But I can guarantee that you and I will watch that, or anyone watch that. They will laugh today as hard as anyone laughed on that night that it was being recorded.
Timeless.
It's timeless. Whereas, you remember, how that Eddie Murphy came out with Delirious and Raw, bah, bah. You can't get a 25-year-old to watch that now. They're not going to understand the references. Not that he wasn't funny, he was funny at the time. But they won't understand the references that he was talking about. Bill Cosby, on the other hand, talking about the different types of drunks and imitating them. They're still around today. Going to the dentist and how the dentist shoves the thing in your mouth and then asks you how your weekend was. That still happens today. Right. He's timeless. And so I think that he was one of the best. Richard Pryor as well. It depends on what they have done to change their particular genre or comedy, The other thing that's annoying, I don't know if you notice, people calling people who've been doing this for 10 minutes legends. No, hang on a second.
We overuse that word.
Yeah, it's just, unless you've been doing it for 15, 20 years consistently and have done something to change or influence, you're not a legend.
Yeah.
Stop calling people legends.
Yeah, I mean,
In other words, the goat.
People use legend if someone keeps the door open for them on the train. Thanks, mate, you're a legend.
That's true.
That's
so good.
It's too much. It's enough already with the legend stuff.
Yeah.
But but with Eddie Murphy, a lot of the other stuff wouldn't work either, even if they got the references.
That's right. Yeah, you can't. It was very, very homophobic, rants and slurs, and he could be perfect for an AFL player.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, he could do the best and fairest night. He would kill.
Yeah, he would kill. Yeah.
So, do you think the fact that you don't really watch a ton of stand-up has actually been good in the context of keeping you original?
Yes, it has. What I used to influence me, because you need some sort of
reference
or something to get into your head to go, I actually listen to a lot of serious podcasts or serious discussions with doctors, psychologists. So with this show, when I was your age, there's a lot of discussion about the differences between kids today versus the way we grew up. But I tried to understand why that is, right? So I listen to a lot of podcasts about, children with anxiety, the differences between the kids today and when we were growing up. But not funny podcasts, like serious psychologists and doctors talking about this kind of stuff. Because that gives me, it gives me a a thread that I can then go, I reckon I can make this funny. You know, okay, like a perfect example you would have seen the other night. You know, today so many doctors and psychologists are saying that the problem with kids today is that they've got those helicopter parents which hover over the kids, making sure they're all right. So I grabbed that simple concept, which is nothing funny about that, and said, well, what did we have? Our parents weren't around. So what is something, so you've got a helicopter because it hovers. What is something that's around but not around? A submarine. We had submarine parents. No one knew where they were. They were there, but no one, see, and that's how I write a gag.
Yeah, that's a great joke, by the way.
You know? Thanks.
Your show, the premise of the show is basically, like you said, the difference between the way kids are growing up today, the way you grew up. You're a father now yourself.
Yeah.
Have you ever had moments where you're like, man, I'm just like my dad?
100%.
Yeah.
In fact, that's all I know. And this is going to be another bit that I'm going to do, not for this show, probably for another one, but I know there's a lot of humour in this. Yes, I have become my dad, and like a lot of us have become our dads. And we're finding that we are becoming our dads. But that is all we know, Ray. So I know the way that I turned out. Yeah, I'm not perfect, but I'm not wayward either. But that is all I know. So if I can be my dad to my son, I know that at least hopefully he'll turn out all right. Yes, there are certain things. There are certain things that you have to pull up on. But I see it when my dad's around. My dad will reprimand my son the way he used to do it with me. And I go, hey, but out of it, because you used to do that with me and I didn't like it. You know?
Right.
Like, my dad's really overprotective.
You mentioned in the show that he's mellowed out a lot.
He's mellowed out, yeah.
That has happened? That wasn't just for the show?
No, he has happened. Yeah, he has mellowed out.
But he's still got those moments.
When he says to my daughter, I love you, I miss you, that is an absolutely true story. That story that I told.
Yep.
He told her in 10 minutes, I love you, I'm proud of you. No, first he said, I'm proud of you, I love you, and I miss you. My dad once told me he was proud of me, and I was 47.
Wow.
And I was married. On the day that I got married, in his speech, he said he's proud of me. 47 kids, 47 years.
Yeah.
And I've done a lot of things to be proud of, right?
Yeah. Not bragging, but...
I'm not bragging, but I've done a lot of things to be proud of. My daughter, she does really well in Taekwondo. No, very proud for you.
Maybe you're going to take up Taekwondo. You ever thought about that? Whose ass are you kicking? No one.
I'm going to take up UFC.
Yeah,
we'll see how proud he is then.
Yeah. Is your wife Italian, by the way?
My wife is half Australian born, but half. Her mother was born in Calabria, and her father was born in Poland. So she's half Calabrese, half Polish.
Okay, so but she's still aware of Italian culture, obviously growing up with it.
So she, my in-laws had their children, so she's the eldest very early, and they were still at university. They're both chiropractors, and so my father-in-law has been in the Calabrese life for 43 years. He actually speaks Calabrese, so even though he's Polish, because he's so ingrained in it, and it's actually really funny.
Yeah, it's interesting.
You know, he's so much into it. So yeah, the whole family grew up, you know, in that.
I guess that helps with parenting, because the reason I ask is my girlfriend has no Italian upbringing.
Right.
And you don't realize until you're dating someone that's not Italian how much of that stuff.
Yeah.
My impulse, well, I'm not even angry, but my impulse is to yell when I react to things. Yeah. And when you're dating someone who's not Italian, you realize, oh, okay, I've got to not do that.
Yeah.
You know?
Why is everyone yelling and screaming?
Right.
That's just the way it is.
You know? Sometimes, I'll give you an example. My zio, he hasn't even heard what you've said, and his reaction is, what do you mean? You know? It's just straight away.
It's just we're passionate, you know? I think I had a gag about that once, where was with the Aussie guy, you know, my Aussie mate rings me and he says, oh, look, you know, I need to talk to you. So what's happening? He goes, oh, mum and dad, I think they're filing for a divorce. I said, why? He goes, oh, they yell and scream and, you know, mum throws stuff at him. She calls him names. And the other day in the middle of dinner, the old man slams a plate down, heads out into the backyard. And I'm going, what seems to be the problem?
Every day is Christmas for you, it sounds like.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You know, and it's a big... And it's such a, you know, such a differences in culture. But the Anglo-Saxons that come to the show, they really love it because in their head, quietly in the corner at Christmas and the table, they're actually looking around making the same observations that I'm making about my Italian family and putting it on stage.
Right.
So they really love it. They really go, "Oh, mate, thanks. I thought I was the only. I thought I was weird thinking all this stuff, but it's true."
And you do have quite a few Anglo-Australians that come to your show.
Yeah. Now it's
Everyone comes.
Everybody comes these days. Back in the day, it was very heavily Italian show, and there was only, you really had to be Italian to understand it. Now everybody comes.
Yeah. You did the show 2 nights ago, which was I think it was the 19th or anyway.
The 20th, yeah.
But during
20th, yeah.
The 20th. Okay, so it was during the comedy festival, but it wasn't a part of the comedy festival.
That's right.
And I remember you telling me you typically don't do the comedy
not
festival
anymore,
because you can put on your own independent shows. Is there value, just from a business perspective though, for you putting on shows in Melbourne during that time of year? Because I guess people are typing in stand-up comedy near me, that sort of thing.
There is a certain value at a certain point, but this might get me cancelled, mate. They give us nothing, mate. So why should I give them anything? I did it last year. No, they send no reviewers. Don't put you on the gala. And I'm one of the biggest draw cards in the festival.
Why is that? Why do you think they don't?
Because I'm a wog.
You reckon?
Yeah, 100%.
Because one of the criticisms as well is that they put all of the money into foreign acts.
Well, there's that, and there's so if you notice all the acts that they use, and I won't mention their names, but I can tell you this: all the acts that they use, all have the same management.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
So they're in bed with the comedy festival. They don't. Yeah.
I kind of suspected that too, but I feel like in Australia in general, in the stand-up scene, to get anywhere, you do need to have an agent, right?
I suppose so. I don't know. I got my own audience. I do my own thing. There's that don't give me anything for that. And also because in 2007 I produced a show here at Northcote Town Hall, and you see the festival, I believe it gets funded by the government, and the more money they make, the more money the government gives them, and so they need to know what the acts are making. Now, because I was doing a show in a non-festival venue, they had no idea how much money I was making. So they asked me, and I said, well, I don't ask you how much money you make. And then the director of the festival wrote to me personally, and she said, we'd really love to know. And I said, I'd love to tell you, but I'm too busy counting it. So I don't think they're going to do me any favours.
How are you able to do that though? So you registered your show as part of the festival?
I registered my show as part of the venue. I paid because if you're in a festival-run venue in Athenaeum or whatever, or the town hall or blah 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 blah, but they take, I think, 25% clip.
Right.
Right. All right. Well, if I'm going to pay you 25%. So I've more than paid for the venue. I've more than paid for the staff. There's 3 shows happening in one night in the same venue. One of those shows is paid for the entire venue for the whole night. What about the other 2 shows? Right? So I've more than paid for you. What are you giving me in return? I'm bringing in thousands and thousands of people. I'm one of the top acts. Why don't you put me on the gala? No. Also, the other thing is I'm not a left-wing comedian, so you're not going to see me on The Project. You ain't going to see me on certain shows. They don't like what I do because I speak my mind. It's not, I do Indian accents.
Right.
You're not allowed to do that. If you're you asked this question before, if you're a young comedian today, you can't get up in a comedy club and do an Indian accent, and if you're not Indian. You can do an Italian accent, you can do a Greek accent, you can do a German accent, you can do a French accent. You can't do an Indian, you can't do a Chinese accent. Yeah. Why? Because it's punching down. Which is offensive to those 2 cultures, because what you're saying is you haven't made it enough. Like the Greeks and Italians, we're established now. You can, of course, make fun of us. It doesn't matter how much we're not going to be put down. So you're saying that the Indians and the Asians are not worthy of being made fun of?
Yeah, it presupposes a social order.
Exactly right. Interesting, isn't it?
It is. Do you identify as being right-wing though? Because I mean, your comedy's not really political.
No.
You do bring up political correctness, and I actually wanted to ask you about that.
Yeah.
Is it gone?
Yeah. I'm not right wing.
Yeah.
I'm middle right. I'm not. I'm not. I'm not. You're not going to see me with a white hood on my face. But I'm not left. That's for sure.
Yeah.
There's parts of me that are left, but no, I'm not. I'm centre right.
Okay. So when you say that though, are we really talking about politics, or is what? Because I have a theory that often what people mean when they talk about left wing. Isn't really anything political. It's more a kind of vibe, which is someone who's very sanctimonious, preachy, maybe even hysterical.
Yeah.
Is that more what you're talking about? Moralizing?
Well, yeah. I mean, I grew up in Australia where it was okay to take the piss, you know, and that's why I say to the audience and the kids today, it's okay to take the piss. Don't be nasty. I think that people that line of being nasty and not being nasty, and where it's a joke and where it's being nasty, is very, very blurred. Like, to me, it's clear when someone is being you bloody wog, you know, like when they're saying that, they're being nasty, you know, or as opposed to he's raising my wog mate.
Right.
That's a big deal. So what?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, for sure.
Sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never hurt me. Today, the words are the sticks and stones of yesteryear.
I think a lot of that is because of the media, though. I mean, how many people really care? I reckon 99% of people don't care at all.
No.
But one person writes something on Twitter or whatever, media outlets grab onto that because it's content.
It's
it
content.
generates
Of
views,
course.
people comment, you know?
Exactly. You know, today, last night, Arj Barker kicked out a lady because she had a baby. Now, okay, so I've read the comments online today, and some people are like, misogynist, you know, how could you kick out a lady who was breastfeeding? What is a lady doing bringing a kid to a comedy show, some other people are saying.
Right.
So with my show, now I've kind of fit in the middle because my show, we encourage you to bring kids. Now, some people say to us, I'd like to bring my kids, but I've got an infant. Can we bring our infant? Yes, you can. We won't charge you for the ticket, but if the child starts crying, we leave it to you to determine whether you go out or not.
Yeah.
Because not only is it disturbing other full paying customers, but you're also disturbing the act. Because as you know, Ray, when you're doing stand-up, you need total focus. Once I had this little kid in the front row, and he'd finished drinking Coca-Cola, and he squashed the can and was going tick, 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 you know, like when you move the can like that. That was enough to make me lose focus.
Did you say anything?
No, I didn't say anything because he stopped, or the mum took it off him. If the mum was sensible and the mum said, "Oh, shit, you're making noise, stop doing that."
Yeah.
So that, you know, it's the parent. But the comments, I was very interested in the comments. The comments were, it was a divisive move. You know, it split people into two. Well, I would want to come to see a show and there'd be a kid there. Other people were like, 30 people got up and left in support of the mother.
Really?
Yeah.
I didn't know that. Okay.
You know, now, some people said, well, the kid wasn't doing anything. It was affecting Arj. To be fair to Arj as well, it did say on the ticket 15 and over. You know, so who's at fault? So what we do to make sure that we don't have this similar situation is we say, yes, you can bring the kid, but if the kid starts to cause enough issue to the performer or to the people around, please do the right thing and just remove yourself with the child until the child calms down, then come back in.
Yeah, that's fair. Like you said, I mean, when you're on stage, just the smallest thing can put you off.
Yes,
big time.
absolutely.
I was reading about the Arj Barker thing today, and if you look at most of the headlines, it makes it sound like something very different happened. It was like Arj Barker kicks out breastfeeding woman.
Of course, because you know, it's a lot. You see a lot of it today in the media. You go, you know, read the tragic news about Joe Avati. Oh, well, what happened to Joe? Oh, you know, he cut his toe. He hit his toe on the, you know, and
On the coffee table.
and the show started 10 minutes later. But if you write Joe Avati kicks his foot on the table and starts 10 minutes late, that's not newsworthy. That's not going to make you click on and go and read the story, is it?
No.
But read the tragic news about Joe Avati.
Yeah, no,
You know?
it's a dirty media landscape at the moment. You know, so okay, coming back to political correctness.
Yeah.
So it is, because I couldn't actually get a gauge on if it was something that actually bothered you or if you were using it in your act as a vehicle to segue into certain material.
Yeah, that's pretty much what it was. It
Right.
doesn't really, you know, no one's cancelled me, you know. And look, my audience know what I do and I know what they want to hear, right? So, but what I'm doing and why I get the applause is because I'm able to package up what everybody's thinking in such a way and communicate it, and it makes people go, yes, that is what. I was trying to say the same thing, but I didn't know how to say it. You said it. Thank you. But you know, nobody is immune from being cancelled. You know, you do something stupid, you know, you get drunk in the car and kill another person, right?
Life
well,
over.
firstly, you'll go to jail, right? But then when you get out of jail, if you're a famous person and you get out of jail, then you've lost all your audience.
Right.
You know what I mean? But is Arj going to get cancelled? He's going to lose some audience. Luckily, it was the last show of the festival. So by the time the next festival comes along, people are going to forget about it. It's not a major disaster.
No, and she was offered a refund anyway. But
yeah.
I mean, let's go back to Napster. And so for people listening to this who don't know what it was, we'll just re-summarize.
Yeah.
Basically, it was audio YouTube before YouTube.
That's right. Yeah.
So artists would upload things in MP3 form and people would download it. And that kind of skyrocketed you.
Oh, that launched my career.
Okay.
At the same time, Metallica, the band, were suing Napster because they were losing out on record sales.
Right.
And back in those days, buying physical albums was still a big deal.
Sure.
You know, you'd make a lot of money by selling physical albums.
Was this 99 or early 2000?
2000, I would say.
Okay.
Yeah.
So tell me a bit about where you were at in your career before that. So what do you remember from the comedy scene, and what were you doing to try and get out there?
So at the time, in 1998, I'd been doing stand-up for 2 years, and I got asked to perform at the Italian Song Festival in Sydney. So basically a Sanremo, but for Italo-Australian singers. They needed somebody to fill in half an hour while the judges were making their decision on who won the Italian singing competition in Australia. So I had just been on TV with them doing my Australian stand-up, and they said, there's this Italian-Australian guy, Joe Avati, let's get him. I knew that they were all Italians, so I threw in my Italian shtick, this is where it first started, jokes about my nonna, and how my nonna, I'd go to her house, she loves buttering the bread. I grew up Australian, I love buttering the bread. Go to my nonna's house, get a big bit of bread, go to the fridge, get a big tub of butter, open it up, olives, bang. Those kind of gags, right? Those kind of gags I couldn't do at the Comedy Store, right? Because not everyone's going to understand. There's Anglo-Saxons coming to the Comedy Store. You have to be a real Greek, Italian, Lebanese, you have to have a wild grandmother to do that. Aussie grandmothers aren't putting olives in the butter container.
No, but so you weren't doing this material normally. Is that what you're telling me?
That's what I'm saying.
I never knew that.
Yeah, so I had two different types of shows.
Right.
I had my English stand-up, where I swore, talked about, I think Gilligan's Island, that'd be a funny porno, wouldn't it?
Right.
Imagine the skipper, come here, little buddy. It was, right? So I had that, but then I got invited to do this show, and I thought, this is my opportunity to trial out all my gags that that were that wouldn't fly in a comedy club. Well, all of a sudden the phone, can you do my wedding? We've got a christening. Can you do the Italian festa, the Italian association? No, we've got an Italian golf club. Can you do all of us? And so every time I would add more and more and more and more. And so all of a sudden there was an undercurrent of this movement going on. Have you heard of this guy? There's this Italian-Australian guy doing this Italian-Australian stuff. There's murmurs. So I decided to put on a show, and I thought, if you don't know who I am, the picture was me with a little old nonna pulling my ear with a wooden spoon, and it was called La Dolce Vita, the show your nonna tried to ban. So I thought, if you don't know Joe Avati, the image is going to be funny enough for you to go, if you're Italian, to go, this looks interesting. What's this?
Check it out, yeah.
I'll check it out. And there was enough, plus the little murmurs that were going on. Oh yeah, this is that guy. It was enough to start filling a 100-seat room. On the September the 10th, 1999, I recorded one of the shows and I put it on a CD. That CD spread all over Australia in 1999, end of 1999. No, it was recorded on the September the 10th, 1999. It was released on January 19th, 2000. By May 2000, I was touring around Australia. By the following July, I was touring around the world selling out stadiums on the back of that.
Super quick.
Super quick. And what launched me overseas was Napster. So what I was doing before Napster was I was doing my Australian English stand-up, and on the side I was doing my Italian, but the Italian side was gaining me a lot more attention than the English. So then it got to the point where I had to abandon the English side of my career and just focus on the Italian stuff, because
that took off.
By 27, I was a millionaire.
Wow.
Just doing this Italian shtick all over the world. I was 27 years old. I had $1,032,000 in my bank account after the first tour.
Wow.
Yeah.
Did you upload onto Napster or did someone else upload?
Someone else uploaded.
So someone else stole your material and made you a millionaire.
And made me a millionaire. So I don't know who that person is. If you're out there, don't come looking for me because I ain't giving you nothing.
Wow. Does a part of you think about ever going back to that other stuff? Because you were pursuing that more seriously, weren't you?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I kind of do it now. So what I've done is, look, the only negative comments I get about my show, which they're negative, but then people they're still having a good time. It's, we really enjoyed your old stuff. We really enjoyed your Italian stand-up. We really want to hear you speaking Calabrese. But that career is a law of diminishing returns. I mean, the people are dying out. Not everyone speaks or understands it anymore. Everyone's in interrelational marriages. I can't come and do my Italian stand-up to an audience like you saw the other night because there's so many people who wouldn't understand it.
Right.
That's why I started my own Instagram page, a separate one called Joe Avati Italian. For all the fans who want to hear the Italian stuff, and I make no excuses. I'm sorry if you don't understand Italian, you're not going to get this page, so don't follow it. And it's got its nice little niche market.
Yeah.
There's more followers on that page than most people have on their Instagram. Because people want to hear that. So to cater for that market, I do that.
Yeah, that's really cool. That's a really cool idea. And you're actually going to Italy this summer or their summer.
Yeah, I'm going to Italy this summer.
So you're doing Milan,
Roma, and Reggio Calabria.
So what's the idea behind that? Is the goal to? Well, you tell me first.
All right. So this all started. I never would have thought I would have done shows in Italy, but all of a sudden, when I put this Italian page out, all of a sudden, bang! When you come to Italy. So I thought, okay, there's enough of an interest now. I'll go. Now the people that are going to be coming to the shows in Rome and Milan are expat Australians, Canadians, British, and Americans, plus also. In the north of Italy, they understand enough English. Louis C.K. did a show there. Jim Jeffries did a show in Italy as well. So there's enough of an audience that understand English stand-up. So there'll be Italian nationals as well. And there'll be people holidaying from all these countries as well who want to see the show. In Calabria, the show will be the Calabrese won't be coming because they don't know about me. Because their English isn't the best, right? Which is fine. That's just the way it is. It's not
the South in general. Isn't as English friendly. Yeah.
Excuse me. Yeah, the South in general is not as English friendly as the North. But who will be coming to those shows? And it's a risk. We don't know. They may happen. They may not happen. Depending on it, it could be a last minute rush. It's the people who are going to be in Calabria from Canada and Australia mainly, holidaying there. Who are going to go, oh, Joe's here, let's go and see him. The one guy, I never thought of it like this, but I thought it was kind of nice. One guy said, I saw Bocelli in Tuscany, I want to see Avati in Calabria.
That's great.
You know what I mean? That kind of a vibe. And that's what it's going to be, yeah.
That's really cool. Yeah. I'm very curious to see how that goes.
Yeah.
More so with the local people there.
Look, Rome and Milan will sell out. The way that the tickets are selling, they'll sell out.
Well, you'll have to let me know how that goes because I unfortunately will not be in Italy for their summer. But let's come back quickly to you blowing up.
Yeah.
How much, I mean, you've been well known for a long time now, so maybe it's something you don't even think about anymore, but how much did becoming famous change your life on a personal level? Because people recognize you on the street, presumably.
Yeah. Yes.
It's got to be a weird way to live your life.
Yeah, so it changed my life in a few ways. It changed my life financially, of course. But it made me realise, funny, we were talking about this at lunch with some mates today. So, people change towards you. Like, I've always tried to keep my feet firmly planted on the ground. I try and not let it get to me. It gets to you after a while simply because you forget. To you, it doesn't mean anything anymore, but to other people, it does. And so you just want to go out and get the bread and the milk, and, you got to think, oh, shit.
For other people, it's an event.
Yeah, for other people, it's an event. Oh, do I have to worry about what I'm wearing?
Right.
I can't. I just want to go. Sometimes I go with no shoes, right? And I think of my dad, no shoes. Man, where you going? No shoes. I just want to get. My wife, can you go get the milk? Get in the car. I don't even worry about it. Go out and do what I got to do.
Right.
And you got to think twice, and you don't want that, right? Hey, and I'm not Tom Cruise. Imagine being Tom Cruise. Imagine that's real fame. I've got a little bit of fame, not But you know what? It's interesting, Ray. I've become famous again. I've become more famous now than I was back then because of Facebook and Instagram and so on. I see it. I just see it. You know, you feel it. You know, you'd walk through the airport, maybe 2 people would say hello. Now, there's 20 people who come and say hello. In that same distance from the airport lounge to the gate, there's 20 people, whereas once there used to be 2 people. So something's happened.
It's going to be quite nice, though, at the same time.
It is nice. But what that tells you is, so I've already been there. So there's some people that I know, again, I'm not going to mention names, who've become famous in the last 4 or 5 years. They go to every opening, to the opening of an envelope, because it's a dopamine rush. You know, they will go where they know there's a lot of ethnics because they're going to be recognised.
Right.
And so it's you know, whereas I know, I'd love to come, but I'm not going to relax. I'm over that.
Right.
When you first start becoming famous, it's a tool. It's really cool. You go out and you know, I don't have to do anything, and I could live in a bus shelter as far as anyone knows. I could drive a terrible car. No one knows, but as far as they know, I'm famous and I'm rich because that's just the impression that they have.
Right.
I can go, you know, anywhere and people already have a preconceived idea
of who you are.
Yeah. You know, and it used to be fun. I'm a shy guy. I would never go and talk to a girl, but they used to come and talk to me. It was fun only because of that. You know, it wasn't because of anything else.
No, you're a great guy.
You know, I'm a great guy.
They would have come up to you no matter what. I'm sure.
So it's fun. It's like a tool, you know. But you've got to be responsible with it, because there are some people, a lot of sports guys, and you know, who use it and they think that, oh yeah, because I am a good football player or a basketball player, I can start doing whatever I want with girls, and you know, that's not cool. That's not great. You know, you have to be responsible about your fame. So yes, it is nice, but I've seen it, and I've become famous again. Okay, here's the thing: when you become famous overnight, it produces ego. When you have a slow burn fame where you start to become famous and you do a little bit more and a little bit more, it creates character.
Right.
You know, I've been famous for 28 years, let's call it a good 22 out of the 28 years. I've been in the public eye a lot, and that's a slow burn. You know, as opposed to some people who just go up, and now it's gone to their head. And it's gone to their head.
Well, like even you mentioned with those other people who, even 4 or 5 years, that's still a relatively short amount of time.
Yeah, it is, yeah.
So for them, it's still new and I guess exciting.
Yeah.
At what point did you start to decide, you know what, I'm just overusing this as a tool anymore to, you know, chat up chicks or whatever and just...
Yeah. It was when I was 40,
right.
You know, and I'll tell you what happened. I know exactly what happened. I was in a club it was in Melbourne. I think it was Club 23. And I was at the bar talking to the owner, and he goes, "Oh, you know, they always like to offer you a drink. Hey, what would you like to drink?" "Oh, I got whatever." And I was standing at the bar, and I could see this group of girls about 5 meters away from me, and they were all lined up having a photo. But the girl that was taking the photo of them was going like this, like, move to the left a little bit. And I go, why is she doing that? And then one of the girls turned around and looked at me like, all right, make sure we get him in the shot.
Right.
So there I was standing there with a drink in my hand, and they were pretending to take a photo of themselves, but really so that they can just get a good shot of me. I don't know what for. Well, I wasn't doing anything wrong. The newspaper wasn't going to buy that picture. And I thought, oh, wow. And then I just stopped. And I thought, I don't want my kids to see, you know, because everything's online these days. I don't want my kids to see me in a club drinking,
right.
You know, like as a 40-year-old, not drunk or, you know, plastered or whatever it was. You know, not that I was, but it was like, that's not the kind of vibe that I want. And I stopped. I just stopped.
So you don't go out now at all? Yeah, fair enough.
Yeah.
Okay, so what about your relationships with people though? Because I imagine that for someone like you, all of your relationships are asymmetrical. And what I mean by that is you can offer people more than what they can offer you. So for example, even now being here, there's nothing I can offer you, but for me, it's a big deal having you on this show. Yeah. That's got to be a weird way to interact with most of the people in your life as well, right?
Well, there's part of it that's a job and you got to do it, right? Part of it's a job you've got to do, you know, interviews and so on and so forth to get out there because of content. But you know what? I enjoy this because I know that you're a smart guy and you're going to ask smart questions. Yeah, I'm not just going to be here, you know, repeating myself, you know, like a broken record about the same old stuff. We're going to deep dive. And I like that. I like talking about the complexities of the job and about my career. So I know I get a lot out of it because the more I talk about it, the more I learn about myself. And I like for people out there to know what the reality is. But no, look, so you learn to keep those relationships at a minimum where you're not going to get anything, because I want to learn too. I'm a person who loves the journey of learning and of creating, more so than the end game, right? So it's all, as I say, it's about the journey. It's not so much necessarily about the journey. It's how you feel when you're creating what you're creating. It's a good vibe. So then I'd like to surround myself with people who I'm going to learn from, which is something my nonna taught me. To literally translate it, she goes, always go with those who are better than you and buy them lunch. Right? Vai sempre con quelli che sono meglio di te and cercato panino. That's what you say. Right? And I always thought to myself, what happens if their nonni said the same thing and I wasn't up to their level? No one's going to go out with me. Right. You know what I mean? But that's just such a tiny little gold nugget.
It's a great piece of advice.
It's a great piece of advice. So yeah, you always, so this is the problem sometimes when you're going out, and why I don't go out a lot anymore. And you can't blame people. I mean, how much of an in-depth conversation can you have with absolutely everybody at the party? You can't. It's just going to be, oh, how you going? You touring? Where are you touring? What's your show? It's all small talk bullshit along the way.
Right.
So now you can go there and be rude, piss off, I don't want to talk to you, which I ain't that kind of person, or I need to remove myself out of that situation. Otherwise, I'm just going to have an unpleasant night.
Yeah. Yeah, that's totally fair. You spoke about creating before, and I'd love to know about your career at this point in time, because I think people would imagine that most of what you do in a professional context is perform. How much of what you do is actually performing, as opposed to all the other stuff, negotiating with venues, speaking with your manager, booking flights, all of the things that go into putting on such a massive show?
A lot of that stuff is thankfully taken care of, all the venue negotiations and the hotels and all that kind of stuff. I still need to be a part of it, because I need to say, especially now that I'm married with a family, flights, whereas once upon a time I'd leave in the afternoon. Now I leave earlier so I can get home earlier, to be with my family. So the flights have changed. My wife and my son come on tour with me. Well, I'd sleep anywhere, mate. I'd sleep under that chair. I couldn't care. My wife and my son need comfort because they're in a hotel room. I go to work. So now the hotels are different. So now we have to consult. So there's still a lot of consulting and toing and froing. It's not just, here you go, turn up on this flight and so on. So there is a lot of that. I have a lot to do with the actual run and where we're going, because I've got a daughter in North America and she goes on holiday at a certain time of the year. So we need to make sure that the tours in that part of the world are around about the same time that my daughter is out of school, so I can spend time with her.
And she comes touring with you?
No, she doesn't come touring with me. Not yet. Anyway, she's still young anyway. But it's a lot easier for my son to come because I've got my wife. We're together. But for her to come, it's a lot harder right now. So there's a lot of that. A lot of the I love being involved in the marketing, and I love being involved in the planning of it. But there are other people who do that. What has happened is that the creativity side of it has upped a lot. Because a few years ago I thought, I used to just wing it. I used to do shows. I used to grab old material, which I knew was still good, and bring it on to the next show and just write a new few bits and pieces, but then keep on bringing it. And I got lazy. And in fact, I actually damaged my brand, because people would go, man, I've gone to see this guy 3 times. It's the same old shit, same old gags. So I had to pull my finger out. And COVID was actually very good for me for that. COVID was good for me in a number of reasons. Firstly, it made me famous again, because people went down rabbit holes that they'd never been, because they've simply had time to go down rabbit holes. A lot of people get up in the morning, look at their favourite comedian and put the phone down, jump in the shower, get in the car and go to work. During COVID, there was no jumping in the shower and going to work. It was, I'm watching this guy, then I'm watching this other girl, then I'm watching this other guy, and and I was 5 or 6 down, and they never got to me.
Right.
But now they can get to me. Oh, who's this guy? Never heard of this guy. So all of a sudden, all the numbers on all my social media went up. The requests have gone up. A lot of new people. You were here there the other night. How many new people are there? People who've never been to my show before. I've been doing this 28 years, Ray, and there are people who've known about me, never been to the show. Now they're coming, and they're bringing their kids too. So I pulled my finger out and said, during COVID, I started learning how to edit, and also I started writing. And I actually started thinking about the show. So I've only started to become a real comedian in the last 4 years.
But you've been getting paid for it for 28.
For 28, yes.
Yes, that's a good system. Well, thank God for COVID. It's basically the...
Yeah, well, for me it was, but, obviously people lost, their loved ones, lost
I
loved
was
ones.
kidding. Just to be clear.
But, for some people it was absolutely awful.
Yeah, for sure.
But for me it was good.
You mentioned the tour. You spent a lot of time in North America. Often when we talk about the differences in audiences, people spend too much time focusing on the language. So obviously we have different names for things, right? I'm not interested in that.
Yeah.
What I want to know is there anything else that you have to change in terms of the way you perform and present yourself? A lot of people say that in the US, for example, you have to be more likable. Do you find any differences there, or you just do the exact same thing?
No, so you can't do, in Canada, it depends on where you are. Like, on the more west you go, the more woke they are.
Right.
Right. So there's certain gags you can't do in Vancouver or Los Angeles because they've just been hit by the woke brush, and they just don't want to hear you saying certain things. I got a gag about how I think that everyone's racist, sexist, and ageist. You heard it the other night. And I'm going to tell you why, because I bet you can't tell me when you're driving. You don't play that game in your head. When someone cuts you off, I bet you I can guess who the driver is. Okay? Everywhere else, massive laugh. LA and Vancouver. Oh.
And they're doing it.
Yeah, they're doing it, but they're not allowed they're not allowed to be seen to laugh at that. Right? So why is that? Why in this city you can't, but right over on the other side of the country you can? Why in Canada, in America, there's a lot of Trump voters who come to my show,
So you'd have no problems with that?
Yeah, you got no problems. Yeah, you can say whatever you want.
Do you find New York to be... Because people are conflicted. On the one hand, the comedy scene in New York is so strong.
Yeah.
But then people do also complain about the way the crowds have changed now over the last few years.
You
found any difference?
Yeah, but not in my show, because I know what my people want.
Also, you're performing on Staten Island.
Yeah.
That is the Trump territory in New York.
Okay.
So that makes a lot of sense too.
Staten, Italy, they call it,
Oh, really?
That's the gag for that.
It makes sense.
Yeah.
It's a weird place because it's really New Jersey.
Yeah.
It's really New Jersey. I don't know how that's a part of New York. I've never understood that. I want to end on the fact that last year you were named Calabrese of the Year. What was that like for you? What did that mean to you?
Look, it didn't change my life, but it was just a nice little tick. It was nice to be recognised by my community. Because I also copped a lot of abuse from Italians as well over the years. There's a saying in Italy, well, there's an Italian expression, permalosi, very sensitive. Italians can be really sensitive. And I noticed that when I started releasing my Italian shtick in terms of, making fun of their post office or something, the abuse that I copped. I've never copped that much abuse about 2 years ago than I have in my entire 28-year career. Never.
That's
and all
insane.
from Italians.
But they complain about their post office, social service as well, more than anyone.
They do. This must be only in Calabria. We're sick and tired of comedians 10,000 kilometres away making fun of us. You're not a real Italian. This and one guy wanted to hang me on a cross outside the Vatican, if he ever saw me. I said, bro, all I said was your post office was crap. That's it. That's all I said. Calm down. And then people would start, I learned not to respond. People would then start fighting between themselves. But it is true. What he says, it is true. The Italian post office is rubbish. And, it used to be like that 15 years ago. And I know the experiences I've had at the post office from the north to the south. I could do a whole show on the post office in Italy.
That's another thing. I often find that, we all know that Northerners see themselves a lot of the time as superior.
Yes.
But if you go to the north, they've not got as much to be proud about as you think.
No.
My first day in Milan, everything was late.
Yeah.
So they try and portray themselves. There's actually a word for it, the Germanization. of the North. There's this idea that
Really, I've never heard that expression.
yeah, so there's a book I'm reading at the moment that actually brings it up. Whether they want to admit it or not, a lot of Northerners desire to be Germans, basically. It's a way of distancing themselves
right
from the South.
And when you say German, like because Germans have got that reputation of being on time, everything working, is that what you?
Yes,
were you
because a lot of the negative stereotypes about Italians from abroad, you know, being late, lazy, whatever. The Northerners will say, no, that's just the Southerners.
Yeah,
I think also a part of them resents the fact that what we view as Italian culture and Italian stereotypes, really only we're talking about the South. Because what we all know in Australia, the US and so on of Italian culture is very much Southern Italian culture because that's where all the immigrants came from.
Of course, yeah.
And I think a part of them resents that, to be honest with you. But anyway, how do you deal with negative comments now? Has it become easier over time? And like generally speaking, how do you get to a place where you don't care what other people think of you? I mean, do you care what other people think of you?
Okay, so there's two strands. There's the idiots who just write, "You're not funny, mate." Okay, whatever. I'm not funny to you. Okay, I don't even bother with those ones. But there are some people who genuinely write a comment where I will respond, and more often than not, may I say, that when I respond, and I never respond with a stupid comment back. I never just throw a punch back. I go, listen, I would respect you more if you said, you don't make me laugh, but I can understand you make a lot of other people laugh, right? But the comments where they've actually thought about, or you can tell that it's actually an intelligent person writing this comment, I'll actually say, well, okay, hang on a second. Where did you get this information from? Were you at the show? Are you just taking a soundbite that you've seen on YouTube or TikTok or Instagram and are making your assumption based on this, right? And if I feel that there's an intelligent person that I can have a robust discussion behind it, I will answer. And more often than not, they turn around and go, hey, actually, you know what? I see what you mean now, Joe. Okay.
So they respond positively to your...
Yeah. So we go back and forth, and I don't just write, oh, you're a dickhead, you're an idiot, what are you talking about? You don't know what you're talking about. No. I say, well, where did you find out this information? Some guy the other day said, oh, that you stole that material from somebody. Who have I stolen it from? That's the first thing I ask. Can you please write down who I stole it from? This person. Please show me. Show me. All right?
Any response?
Yeah, and they'll respond and they'll go, generally they can't pinpoint it.
Right.
Because just because I've got the same idea as someone, that's possible, right? There's this gag that I do about in Australia, the 000 is the longest possible number that you can dial in an emergency situation, right? Back in the day when you had the rotary phone, right? It wasn't the push button. It was you're doing this and by the time the ambulance gets there, the guy's dead, right? Someone goes, oh, mate, that's a Lee Evans joke. Firstly, I don't even know who Lee Evans is. I looked him up. He's a British comedian. I go, what's a British comedian got to do with an Australian comedian? Is it 000 in Britain? No. I don't even know what it is.
It's 999, I believe.
Oh, 999.
I believe so.
Okay, all right. So that 0 was 9 is the one before 0.
Right.
Now, is it not possible that two people in different countries can have the same point of view? Where I get it a lot, and you were talking about all these other Australian comedians and so on. There's a guy called Sebastian Maniscalco in America, right? I'm sure you've heard of him.
Sure.
Yeah, right. Big act, massive,
huge,
great act too. Now, he is a 50-year-old Italo-American whose father is Sicilian. I'm a 50-year-old Italo-Australian whose father's Calabrese. Is it not possible that we are both going to have very similar thoughts about the Malocchio or about something? So, mate, you stole that from Sebastian Maniscalco. Sometimes people will say, Sebastian Maniscalco's stealing your material.
Right.
And I'll write back and go, I don't think Sebastian's stealing my material. I actually stick up for him. And I'll say, and when that comes in, I'll engage with somebody. If I can feel then that they're just ignorant and they're just writing just because they want to, then I'll leave. I go, you know what? I don't even bother. But when I feel that we can have a discussion, a good, robust debate, I will do it. And more often than not, people go, oh, yeah, fair enough, I can see that now. You both come from the same generation. You both got immigrant fathers. He's in Chicago. I'm in Australia. you're cool. Yeah, okay, I can see that.
Yeah, you would have very different, very similar upbringing.
Yeah, very
similar
Yeah,
worldviews
yeah.
as a result of that.
But when someone gets your material, your stand-up, and makes a video of it and puts it online, where it's a very Avati gag, not cool. Not cool.
Yeah. Joe Avati, I really appreciate your time. Thank you for
Ray.
coming on.
Thanks for having me. That went really quickly.
That was a lot of fun. That was awesome. I really appreciate it.
Oh, cool, man. Thanks, Ray. Appreciate
Thank
it.
you.